Well, President Donald Trump has sought to counter criticism that his war on Iran lacked clear purpose, while he's listed 4 explicit goals, which includes ensuring the country never obtain a nuclear weapon. Trump even said that the strikes were the last best chance to hit Iran. Listen in to what he had to say earlier.
Our objectives are clear. First, we're destroying Iran's missile capabilities, and you see that happening on an hourly basis, and their capacity to produce brand new ones, and pretty good ones they make. Second, we're annihilating their navy. We've knocked out already 10 ships. They're at the bottom of the sea. Third, we're ensuring that the world's #1 sponsor of terror can never obtain a nuclear weapon, never going to have a nuclear weapon. And finally, we're ensuring that the Iranian regime cannot continue to arm, fund, and direct terrorist armies outside of their borders.
Well, Trump previously justified the operation, saying that Iran was attempting to rebuild its nuclear program and could soon possess missiles capable of striking the U.S., a claim that has been denied by Iran's foreign ministry as well. Trump further said that he took the decision to launch a war against Iran because it was the last best chance to stop the country's alleged nuclear bomb program.
This was our last best chance to strike what we're doing right now and eliminate the intolerable threats posed by this sick and sinister regime. And they are indeed sick and sinister.
Well, Donald Trump even signaled that U.S. strikes on Iran could go on much longer than originally predicted and warned that the wider West Asia conflict triggered by U.S.-Israeli strikes could last more than a month. Earlier, it was in an interview with the New York Post that President Trump had refused to rule out sending U.S. troops into Iran that could risk far higher casualties than the 6 service members who've been killed so far.
We're already substantially ahead of our time projections, but whatever the time is, it's okay. Whatever it takes, we will always, and we have right from the beginning, we projected 4 to 5 weeks, but we have capability to go far longer than that. We'll do it. Whatever somebody said today, they said, oh, well, if the president wants to do it really quickly, after that he'll get bored. I don't get bored. There's nothing boring about this.
And joining us more to discuss the escalating situation in West Asia and the statements coming in from the U.S. is Giorgio Cafiero. He's a professor at Georgetown University and CEO Gulf State Analytics. Mr. Giorgio, pardon me if I pronounce your name incorrect. Coming straight to it, Iranian finance minister has questioned the U.S. claim regarding its military aircraft mistakenly downed by Kuwaiti defense forces, essentially Iran digging its heels on the claim that Iranian forces downed U.S. F-15 military aircraft. How do you analyze the statements coming in from the Iranian foreign minister?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on your program. Definitely so much going on, a lot of fog, very, very unclear what to make of some of these developments. I am not actually up to speed on this latest issue that you have asked about, to be entirely frank with you, and I don't want to give any misleading comments at this time.
Okay, so we'll keep this for another time regarding the 3 military aircraft of US that were downed on Kuwaiti airspace. But talking about the statements that have been coming in from the Democrats who have warned that the US could get pulled into a protracted conflict, do you think the concerns being raised by the Democrats is quite legitimate at this juncture?
Well, the Democrats are definitely not all on the same page. There are some who have been very opposed to the U.S. taking military action against Iran. And then there are others who even went to the right of Donald Trump, such as Senator Chuck Schumer of New York. So we definitely need to appreciate the fact that the Democrats are not necessarily all on the same page. However, what we have heard from many Democrats is criticism of the way in which Trump launched these operations against Iran. Not necessarily that he made the decision to launch operations against Iran, but that he did so without congressional approval, without lawmakers being a part of the process. This is definitely, I think, one of the main talking points that we're going to hear from Democrats, especially if the U.S. campaign that's underway does not go so well from the perspective of U.S. lawmakers. I think between now and the midterm elections this year, Trump is going to receive a tremendous amount of criticism from the Democrats on this point.
All right, Mr. Giorgio, talking about the latest statements coming in from the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who says that the U.S. carried out these strikes preemptively because it learned that Israel was planning to carry out strikes on Iran. What do you make of this statement? U.S. Secretary of State saying that these were nothing but preemptive strikes carried out by the U.S.
Well, let's dissect it a little bit. He basically said if the U.S. and Israel were to attack Iran, Iran would respond in a manner that was threatening to U.S. interests,
right,
and therefore Iran posed an imminent threat, and the U.S. had to go ahead and bomb Iran. That's very circular logic. That's not something a Secretary of State of an administration that's trying to avoid war would say. That's the language of a Secretary of State who is looking for every single excuse possible to act aggressively toward Iran, when doing so was completely unnecessary and reckless. If we weren't talking about so much loss of life and so much property damage, there would almost be something a little funny when you consider the absurdity of that type of circular logic. Unfortunately, there's nothing funny about it. The ongoing conflict has resulted in much bloodshed and a tremendous amount of violent chaos that seems to be spilling across international boundaries and impacting more and more countries in very destabilizing manners. This was all unnecessary. The Trump administration had an opportunity to reach a diplomatic agreement with Iran, but individuals and important figures within Trump's administration, such as Marco Rubio, were very desperate to start this war, which I repeat, entirely unnecessary, strategically flawed, immoral, and just a completely reckless move on the part of the White House.
Giorgio, that being said, regarding the statements that came in from the U.S. Secretary of State, he even warned that the hardest hits are yet to come. So remains to be seen how U.S. essentially plans to carry this forward. But shifting focus to the statements that have been coming in from the NATO side, it's the NATO chief who says that the alliance won't be involved in the conflict. Now, in your view, you think the fears being raised by Europe are legitimate at this point? Because German officials had earlier said that Iran could very much activate its sleeper cells as well in coming days if this conflict escalates.
Well, I think since the end of last month, when the United States and Israel began bombing Iran, Europe has responded in a manner which really just speaks to the fact that European countries lack backbone and European countries lack autonomy from the United States. Just to remind your viewers, after Iran began retaliating, European countries were very quick to condemn Tehran's missile and drone attacks on countries in the Gulf and elsewhere in the Middle East. But they never at any point condemned the United States or Israel from waging an unprovoked act of aggression against Iran. Now, having said all of that, right now, European policymakers do need to consider the ways in which this conflict can spiral out of control and fuel various forms of instability and chaos in other regions of the world beyond the Middle East. Let's keep in mind this conflict has already spilled into the European Union when we remember the fact that it has spilled into Cyprus as of now. So I think obviously European countries are concerned about their security. There are cards that Iran has at its disposal to create instability inside European countries, and the Europeans are trying to weigh those risks right now and to protect their countries from the possible threats that we're talking about. But let's keep in mind, though, that there has been no serious effort on the part of Europe to stand up for international law here. When it came to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the Europeans were very much morally assertive when talking about Russia's violations of international law. But when it comes to the United States and Israel acting as rogue states that have zero respect for international law, zero respect for the UN Charter, nothing to say. This speaks to European hypocrisy, where the rights of Ukraine and the sanctity of Ukrainian lives are precious, but a country like Iran doesn't have a right to sovereignty, doesn't have a right to self-defense. As far as the loss of life in Iran, no comments from the European leaders. Very selective, quick to condemn the Iranian government for its human rights violations, but when the Israeli and American war machines slaughter Iranians, the Europeans have nothing to say.